Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our UNB Talks webinar, Deck Your Halls with Seasonal Decor. My name is Mary Duffley, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Associate Alumni, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. We launched this webinar series during COVID in an effort to maintain our connections with alumni because we couldn't see them in person. And we were overwhelmed with the support and participation from the alumni. Many of you may have joined us for previous webinars. We try to balance them between professional development and human interest like the one today. We've returned to our regular in-person gatherings, but we're going to continue with the webinar series. And so again, in January, you'll see some new webinars being shared. And so hopefully you'll tune into some different webinars going forward. Before I introduce Ginny today, I wanted to review a couple of housekeeping items. Some of you have submitted questions in advance, and we'll certainly get to those within our hour together. Ginny has about a 30-minute presentation, and then we'll follow with some Q&A. So if you have additional questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those during our hour together. So I'm very pleased to introduce Ginny Ward to you today. From an early age, Ginny's always been keen on design. She started her career in education. She did her arts degree here in St. John at the UNB campus and went on to do education. She taught for a little while and then decided to follow her passion, which was design. And she completed a design course and then launched her own business. It's been 3 years. It's Virginia Ann Interiors. Ginny is in Halifax. She works for a major building company and she's one of the head designers for that company. And so she loves working with clients and to help bring their personality and style into their own home. So she's a perfect person to lead us in this webinar. I'm really excited to hear what she has to say, and hopefully we're all going to learn something and take something away so that we can enhance our homes for the holiday season. So I will turn it over to Ginny, and she will take us through her presentation, and then we'll get back to Q&A after that. Ginny?
Hello, thanks for the intro, Mary. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, so thank you very much. I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited by the opportunity to share my passion with everybody. So they very cleverly called this Deck Your Halls, and I love that. I thought that was very clever. So as we know, with all of the expectations that we see now with Pinterest and Instagram and all these social media things that we are connected to all the time, too much sometimes, we have expectations of what our home should look like and how we should decorate. And we want to make sure that we are decorating for ourselves, for our lifestyle, for our home, within our budgets, and also keeping our Mother Earth in mind too. So I'm hoping that I can bring shed a little light in this area for you. In some of the things, I have some questions at the end, as Mary had mentioned, and we'll get to those too, and I might answer some of those within the presentation as well. But certainly, please, if something comes up, note a question at the question and answer period at the end. I would love to help guide you through some more. So let's move on to the next slide, please. And then we're going to look at, so how to decorate. So we have, we're going to decorate, we can decorate on a budget, sustainably, on trend, but most importantly, how to decorate and have fun. A lot of people have stress around this. And so we want to make sure that the holidays are fun. They can be stressful, absolutely, but decorating shouldn't be the stressful part. So let's try and work through that and make it more fun. So let's, on a budget, what I'll do is I'm gonna break it down. We're gonna touch a little bit on it, and then I'm gonna talk about each one. So get your pen and paper out and take notes on your favorite subject or on all of them. But if we're talking about on a budget, we're gonna talk about shopping at secondhand shops, using items you already have, buy things that are winter related instead of holiday related. So then we're going to talk about using nature if we're talking about things that are sustainable, So all kinds of different things. That's sustainability. Sustainability, I would say, is one of my favorite topics. That's a little, it's close to home for me. I enjoy that. And I know that my sister, who's also on this call, is big on sustainability as well. So there's make your own greenery kind of thing. So we're going to talk about that. On trend, this is a big one. We'll kind of address how to stay on trend, but also not get caught up in trends too, because I feel like it's really important that your home feel like you for Christmas. It's your home, it's your holiday, or whatever holiday you are decorating for. Let's make it for you, and we can incorporate trends. So we'll talk about how to do that. So we're going to move on to the next slide, please. So on a budget. So like it says here, on a budget doesn't have to look cheap. All right. So sometimes when you think on a budget, you're like, oh goodness, I don't want to go and buy like these things, these rickety things that aren't going to last, or that, look like I bought them at the dollar store. We can work around that. There are lots of different tricks to decorating when it comes to having a budget. My clients always say to me, well, I have a budget. So, and I always say back to them, everybody has a budget. It's just what your budget is varies. But there are very few people out there that are like, no, free for all. Let's just, anything and everything. So it doesn't matter what your budget is, but especially now, there are certain areas that we need to cut back on overall, there's a lot going on. And so Christmas ornaments and Christmas decorations or holiday decorations are certainly somewhere we can do that. So we've all heard one man's trash is another man's treasure. So we don't want to overlook the thrift shops, the dollar stores, other discount stores, marketplace, Kijiji, all those places where people are getting, donating or selling perfectly good items that maybe it doesn't suit their home anymore, or maybe they're moving, or you never really know someone's situation. But just because it is budget friendly doesn't mean that it's not a quality piece. It could be something like some examples that if you go to your local thrift shop, for example, I know like my Value Village in my area, they have a full spot designated just for Christmas. And there are several faux wreaths there. So we'll talk about how to use those. So faux wreaths or garland, they have, any decorations that you may want, they really have. Some of them are brand new because some people buy things, don't use them, and donate them. So use that to your advantage, buy them at that cheaper ticket price. And then we can talk about how to expand on them. Toboggan seems like a random thing. However, we do see one of the things that we're going to see is in the trends is this decorating your front of your house, like decorating your porch. That's a big thing. So things like toboggans and baskets and items that you don't really want to pay full price for, because they're not there. Our season's quite short. So we want to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. The next thing would be, so like a Christmas tablecloth, or like if you could find, old Christmas sweater at a thrift store, something that you could remake into something different. So you could DIY, some bows, or you could DIY a tablecloth into some napkins. And we're going to talk about, the sustainability portion, napkin situation at the holidays, because it can get a little bit crazy. And then you could buy flannel shirts. Take those flannel shirts. If you're crafty, make a stocking out of that nice flannel shirt. Or you can make bows out of it. Tear it and tie bows onto your gifts. There are all kinds of things you can do. The faux wreaths. So if you get a faux wreath, we can add to it. And I have a couple images as well. I do want to just, I'm not going to go back on the slide necessarily, but just moving forward, I made the bold choice of using photos of my own home to show what I do. They're just snippets from over the years. So I'll point out what I've done in my home for as far as these decor tips go. However, the last slide, when I told this to my sister, we were going through it, she called me out. She's like, this is not from your home. Yeah, no, you're right. There isn't one. So the last slide I will show you, it is not from my home, but the rest of them are. And so I'll point out what I've done to incorporate these. So these are things that I do myself as well. Secondhand ornaments is also a great thing. So when I say that, I don't necessarily mean tree ornaments. Some of us may not even have a tree. I know my in-laws, for example, for them, it's not worth having a tree up anymore. It's a lot of work. They have a little countertop tree, and that's good for them. So ornaments could be, your bows, if you have bows around the house, or if you have candles and candlesticks, baskets, you can use tree ornaments. Christmas trays, like for your dishware, your cookies, like stuff like that, anything like that. That's all great stuff to look for on these discount locations. The issue, I don't want to say issue, it's not an issue, but what people say is it takes a lot of time. You do have to be pretty patient, because you're not going to find something every time you go, or even, one out of every 2 times. Like you have to go in with an open mind. I wouldn't necessarily go in with thinking like, oh, I specifically want this. That's really not how, especially thrift shops or marketplace or stuff like that work. So long as you keep an open mind and you're patient and you start the process early, I think that it is very doable to have great decor on a budget. So I hope that you found something in there. Make sure if you have any questions in regards to that you note them down, because I'd love to answer them. And I'm going to expand on some of what to do with some of those items as we progress through the slides. So if we could move on to our next slide. So sustainability. So like I said, I'll try not to be too long-winded here, but this is a particularly a topic that I love. So with most holidays, we have a lot of stuff. And by that, I don't mean that stuff can't have value or can't have meaning, because it certainly does. I know I have a lot of things that hold value that came from my family, or that were gifts, things like that. But we do have a lot of stuff, and we seem to accumulate more stuff as the years go on, and as the holidays become more and more big. I don't really know how else to explain it, but I think you understand what I mean. And it's fun, and there's lots of positive to that, but we just want to make sure that we don't go overboard and sacrifice other things, like the sustainability of everything, really. So let's talk about how to do this. So shopping local. I'm sure all of you have heard these words over and over again, especially in the last few years, and it's because it is really important. Shopping local not only supports people within your community or within your region, but it also cuts down on shipping costs and shipping, things being freighted over, how much we need to rely on outside sources. So all these things, it all plays into sustainability. Sometimes it's easier than others, depending on where you live, to shop local. But there are things like Etsy, which generally you can find people within your vicinity. And if not, you can find people within Canada. Your local doesn't necessarily have to be your next door neighbor or, down the street. We can keep it local within Canada as well. But obviously, the smaller the circle, the better it is for everybody. But I would say shop local. Go to your craft fairs. Go to your Christmas bazaars. Make sure that, if you enjoy those things, that you attend them and you support the people who are there providing their services or providing their goods that they have worked hard on. And they rely on people like you to support them so that they can continue to do this moving forward as well. So it's a good feeling for the holidays to support someone who is working so hard at this, that it's within your community, and it's a feel good for you because you know that you've done good by them and by you by shopping locally. So that is a big one. Speaking of local, my next one is forage, forage, forage. So in this photo, you'll see that I have, there are some wreaths on my wall, and then I have a tree. So the first wreath, the thicker of the two wreaths there, is actually a faux wreath. And I live in the woods, essentially. And so I go out and I cut off greens out of whatever I can find, and just little branches here and there. And then I kind of go through and I layer it into this faux wreath so that you have that real look without having to have the cost association. So this goes back, if you recall, I said about the budget and buying that faux wreath. So now we're incorporating it into the sustainability. So I interject I put in all those greens from my yard, and then I give them a little spritz every now and then, every 3 to 4 days or so, just like a light spritz with a water bottle, keep them green and fresh. And then at the end of the season, I take out the fresh greens and I put away the wreaths, and then I do it again next year. And the fun part with that too is you can get creative. So you can have a different thing every year, depending on what's available. Maybe it was a snowy year, so you didn't have those same flowers or bushes that were available the year before. So it makes it for an interesting and a crafty and a fun idea, but also you're just pulling from nature, so you're not really doing any harm. I understand that the wreath is not the best, it's plastic. However, because I'm using it year after year after year, instead of buying new ones, then I see that as a good thing. I also do have one real wreath because typically there are hockey teams or other places that are doing fundraisers. So I do have a real wreath in my house on the front door. And I mean, it's obviously perfectly okay to do that too. So everybody has their kind of thoughts on real versus faux, but I like to mix both. So. And when you're foraging, you can look for all different kinds of types of greenery. So you have like I use boxwood, fir trees, pine trees. Sometimes when I'm out for a walk, I'll just feel like a random branch on the side of the road. I'll be like, oh, this is actually quite pretty. We can integrate this in. And I collect things actually over the course of time. I put them in a bucket of water and they just kind of sit on my back porch. Eventually they freeze, so we have to bring them in once you want to use them. But like red berries, they grow on bushes, in the woods, and you can don't eat them, but you can decorate with them. So just pine cones, even small trees, like the one in that image, that is from my backyard, and I just put it in. A little trick for you. I take an old planter, I line the bottom with a plastic bag, which are hard to come by now, but maybe some saran wrap. You put in kitty litter, and then you put your tree in, and then you pour water. It has to be clumping kitty litter, okay? So clumping kitty litter, then you pour your water in, and you hold your tree, and then as it dries, you let go of the tree. It doesn't take that long, and the kitty litter almost turns into like a cement. So then your tree is in place. I do that for my outdoor planters as well. It works super well. So yeah, so there's a little trick for you. I'm going to get stuck on this one for so long, so I'm going to move along, but I'm still on sustainability, but I just want to move on to my next point. So organize an ornament swap. So we all know of the great cookie swap, and quite frankly, I'm not very good at those. I am not a baker. However, an ornament swap is the same idea. So one of the questions that we had was about having a lot of ornaments in, and you kind of get, are there too many ornaments? When do we decide what to do with ornaments? And you do get to that point. And I find, especially, I don't know about you guys, but in the last couple of years, I wanted to unload stuff. Like, I feel like I just want to, you know, I have too much stuff. Let's unload. Let's, you know, fresh start, all this kind of stuff. So I went through and I set aside all my ornaments. Now, I didn't do an ornament swap, but I should have, but circumstantially, it wasn't really a thing. So I donated mine. However, if you get your group of friends or family or whatever together and you say, all right, bring your ornaments that you are no longer using, or you know, that you haven't used in a few years, I'll bring mine, and then bring them all to the table. I say table, just I'm looking at a table, but yeah, so like bring them all to wherever you're going and put them out, and then swap. Take, you know, just because your friend or your family doesn't want it doesn't mean that you don't want it. And the same goes for your items. So they can take some of your items and you can take theirs, and then suddenly you have a refreshed decor vibe without spending a dime and without having to go to the shops and buy something new. So just a little thought. Of course, you could always mix that with some beverages and some baking. If you come to mine, it'll probably be purchased at a store or a bakery. But so just have fun with it. Enjoy it, make it a party. And so we do a lot of gift exchanges. This could be a whole, like just a different way of doing that. Similarly, asking family for ornaments that have meaning to you. So I know that, you know, for many of the holidays are based in tradition. And there are certain things that when I think of holiday decor, I think of, there's one thing that's kind of, it's just like a green dish that my Nana used to keep chicken bones in, and it has a lid. So if there are pieces like that, and you could say, you know, to your Nana or your mom or whomever it is, and say, just curious if you are still using that. And if you're not, would you mind if I took it? It's special to me, it has good memory, and I think it would fit in nicely with my decor at my home. So, you know, about tradition, about family, about warmth and comfort, that's what the holidays are about. So being surrounded by things like that is just that nice added touch. Excuse me. I can take a little sip of my tea here. It also gives the item a longer life. So, you know, when they're done with it, they may end up, you know, throwing it away or giving it away or whatever. But this way, it has a longer life and it has a meaningful life because it has, you have it and it is special to you. Not all things that have meaning are pretty. It sounds terrible, but like, or may not fit in with your decor. It's probably the better way to say that. But we can layer them in. And I certainly do that often with clients when we're decorating their home. They have items that are, you know, family heirlooms that they don't necessarily love in their space, but we make it work. And I am confident that you can also do that. So that would be, you know, my big thing on the family things. Don't overlook it because it doesn't fit your decor. You can make it work. It's special. So don't overdo it. So we, as I said, a lot of more happens every year. It happens to everybody. One thing you can do is if you buy something new, donate one other item. So I'm sure we've all heard of the closet thing. You know, if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it. So similarly, take that same theory and use it to your ornaments. So just if you have a whole bunch of ornaments, take note of what you're using and what you're not using, and maybe put aside what you didn't put out this year. And you don't have to necessarily get rid of it. Put it in a separate box and see if you don't use it again next year or if you miss it. And if you don't, I would say time to move on, and then you may have some room for some new fresh pieces, but there's no need to have a ton all the time. It's also it bogs down when you get all your Christmas ornaments out. Looking at it all, it seems very daunting to put it all out. So if we simplify that and we simplify our supply, then it can make the whole process a little bit easier. And then my last point on this one is winter shop in lieu of holiday shop. So we all see it. We see the, you know, your holiday napkins and your, you know, with the trees and the elves and the presents and the snowflakes and the, you know, all kinds of things on them. And they're sweet and they certainly have a place. However, if we're going to try and do things sustainably, I'm recommending that we buy items such as, in my photo, that blanket that is on my sofa. So actually that that blanket there, I swap it out. I have a different one for the seasons. May sound ridiculous, but to me, this plaid one has the holiday colors in it. I can put my greenery around it, and it really gives the full vibe of Christmas. And in fact, to the extent that when I was doing my decorating, my youngest daughter said, "Mom, where's the Christmas blanket that goes on the couch?" So yes, I'm getting there, and it stays there all winter long. So again, something else that I do is with napkins. So I love napkins. I have a mother who has literally a buffet filled with beautiful napkins, and there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. They are beautiful. They add to your decor when you have celebrations. But on a day-to-day, I think making the change to cloth napkins is really a key thing in sustainability. So at Christmas, I have red napkins, but they're already out for me now, and then they will stay out into the winter months. So try and buy, and same as like toss cushions, try and buy, you know, instead of ones that say Merry Christmas, buy a red pillow, buy a plaid pillow, buy a fluffy pillow, buy something that feels cozy and warm. And then that can stay there all season long. And you can kind of just put the little bits and bobs around it. So I hope that makes sense. That's what I'm saying as to winter shop in lieu of holiday shop, but just a little tidbit of information on that. So moving on to my next slide. So don't be scared to get creative. And this is just kind of across the board. But again, if you're doing like these DIYs with the on a budget and you're doing some sustainability things, then, you know, this is a wreath that I made just out of literally things that I found out on a walk. That's my base, is my faux wreath. And then I just sit in the driveway or in the basement, and I just poke things in until I'm happy with it and then put it up. Sometimes I switch it around, but that's the beauty of you being in control of your own creation. And then it's also something to be proud of, which is really nice. The two items that you see there, which are two gifts, I started to do, so our local Sobeys anyway, they do paper bags. So I was finding I was accumulating a lot of these paper bags. I use them for my compost, but then I was like, what else can I do with these? And I was going to wrap my Christmas gifts, and I was like, well, why am I using wrapping paper? I should use these paper bags. So what I did is we wrapped the gifts, and then my girls and I got our craft stuff out, and we painted them. So not only is it sustainable and we're reusing the paper, and then the paper is compostable, but it also gives your gift just that much more meaning, and it gives a nice memory for the kids as well. So don't be scared, as I said, to think outside the box and do your own thing. Try and find something that makes you happy, that's going to, create lasting memories. All right, moving on, because I am getting well behind my time here. Sorry, I told Mary I could talk forever, and I definitely can. Okay, so on trend. So we have the Pinterest, we have Houzz, we have Instagram, we have all these things. The list goes on, and we are inundated with inspiration all the time. And then we have these inspirations, and then we develop expectations. So you don't have to be on trend on all the things. Okay, so similar, like think about your wardrobe. If you were constantly on trend on your wardrobe, you would be tossing your full wardrobe. Gosh, at the rate we change now, like what, every 6 months, if that. I don't even know, 10 seems to go so fast. So I always say, it's a big thing with my decor in general, is I say that you decorate for yourself. Do your home a service and make it speak to you. And then you can add in these little trends. Okay, so buy some key items that are trending that season, layer them into the decor. Only buy trending items that suit your style and your taste. Just because it's on trend doesn't mean it's going to fit into your home. And there certainly are tons, you know, there's not one trend, there's always a few different trends. If you aren't into trends, don't do it. Bottom line, you don't have to do that. You know, you do you. It's really, really important that you feel comfortable in your home and that you are happy with what you have as a decor. If that means doing it all trendy, then you do that too. But just don't feel like you have to do the trend because it's all over the place in front of you. And then sometimes trends can be accomplished with items you already have. You know, so one trend that I'm going to speak about briefly is mantelscaping. Great name, coined by House and Home magazine. And so that's just decorating your mantle. You don't have to go and buy anything new. You can use items that you already have. A lot of it's about candlesticks and layering in different heights. So you probably have all those things. So integrate it that way instead of going out and buying trendy items that are probably not going or may not stand the test of time. Then the last thing I'm going to say is the side note here. So just going back to that sustainability. Donate items that you may have purchased on past trends that you don't think are trendy anymore or that aren't trending anymore. But just because they're not trending doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't want them, right? So again, another man's trash is another man's treasure. So don't make it trash, donate it, sell it on Marketplace. Just don't put it into landfill. It also lightens the load at your house. You're not carrying a bunch of things that you don't have to. Next slide. So these are the wreaths that I made. Very simple. These just have, I got just like a metal ring at Michael's and literally just took some cedar, wrapped it around and threw some wire in there. Easy peasy. And then these ribbons, just tied them on, add some greenery, done. And then you have this very economical, sustainable, budget-friendly decoration. But let's talk about trends of 2022. So trends of 2022, we have natural finishes, such as the wreaths and stuff, still going strong. That's been here for a while, and I don't really see that going anywhere. And I'm not talking about like your Christmas tree, but like actually having greenery throughout the home. Nostalgia and traditional. So this is actually speaking to like the color. So the reds and the golds and like anything that you think of that, you know, typical Christmas decor. And then a bonus to this is that red and golds are timeless. So if you jump on this trend, it's going to stay with you. So it's a good one to invest in. Then we have the door displays, which I discussed about the toboggan. So having your front porch or your front area, whatever you have, decorated, kind of, you know, I'll say over the top, but I just mean like not just your wreaths and your lights. They have, you know, little gifts that are boxes that are wrapped that look like gifts, or a toboggan, or like a little setup of sorts. So that is a big one. We also have the bright colors and then candy canes. And my personal favorite, sustainability. So candy canes, I'm talking candy canes, like we know the candy cane pattern, and that's kind of the big thing. It's not necessarily throwing candy canes all over your house, but it's the pattern, that red and white, again, coming back to that traditional nostalgic kind of feel. And bright colors are for the bold, if you want, or the fun at heart. And we can actually go to the next slide. And this is the photo that is not from my home. I did actually at one point have a very colorful tree, but this is a trend of this really colorful tree. So this slide is basically to say, have fun. And like I said, the holidays can be stressful. Don't let decor be part of the stress. Embrace it, have friends over. You can, do it with your kids, create memories. So there are so many ways that we can take away stress from decor, so long as we are present in the moment while we're doing it. And we have these little tips to help us so that we don't get caught up in the stress of it all. So just on my next slide here, I said just thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to hearing your questions. I hope you will have happy and safe holidays. And I also hope that you have some takeaways and that you are able to apply some of those to your decor this season. So thanks.
Thanks, Ginny.
No problem. Sorry, it went frozen here for a second. Sorry about that.
Okay. That was great. I have so many takeaways. The one takeaway, which I never ever would have thought of, is the kitty litter. That's incredible.
Yeah,
I usually will have a tree that I cut down from in the backyard and I put it outside. And Derek is trying to figure out, my husband's trying to figure out how to put the tree and put bricks around. Kitty litter.
Kitty litter.
It's like an aha moment.
I have to give credit to my parents' neighbor because she has tons of trees out. And I asked her one day, I was like, same thing. I'm like, how do they stay up so straight all winter? Kitty litter. Who would have thought of it? Yeah. And you can get big boxes of it at Costco.
We have some kitty litter downstairs because so yeah, it's just, anyway, that was my aha moment. Interesting. I love the ornament swap because we did have a question obviously about purging ornaments, and we all have that problem. I think we all maybe change colors of our trees, et cetera, et cetera. So having an ornament swap, I think, is such a nice idea because it is a shame not to be able to use them, and somebody else certainly could use them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have some questions. I'm not sure if there's any questions online yet, but we have some questions that were submitted. And one of them, I know you might have touched on it a little bit, is small space decorating. So those folks who may be living in an apartment, how to avoid the over decorating, because when you're in a small space, you don't want to be just overwhelmed with all the Christmas or holiday stuff. Is there tips that you might have?
Yes, there are. So one thing I'll say is again, when I was going over this with Sarah, she said, small over decorating, there's no such thing, do it all. I was like, well, yes, like some people might want to have the more is more, and actually, that is another trend right now, is this more is more, but in a small space that can become very overwhelming. And so what I would say is there are a couple ways of approaching this. You can do what I said earlier and thin out your stash, if you will, and make it so that it's, you're not picking and choosing over the holidays what to put out. You only have as much as you want or need. And yes, of course, we're always going to acquire things over the holidays, but then that's where you can incorporate that, get one, take one out to replace that one. The other thing that you can do, and this is actually what I used to do with my kids' toys growing up, was when they were growing up, I mean, they're still young, but they had a ton of toys. So I would take a selection of toys, I would put them in a bin, they would play with their toys, and then when they got tired of those toys, I would swap the bin. So you can do this with your decor as well. You can have maybe different ones year to year. You can have like every second year you see your ornaments. So you don't have to get rid of other ones. You can have them all, or even throughout the season, you can swap them out if you're really that keen. So you can keep it simple while still using all your decorations. And then it's like a little refresh every year too, if you do it. So the other thing I would say is to keep your, like if you are starting, maybe you just move to a smaller place and you're looking to decorate for the first time in a small space, keep your color scheme simple. So maybe, if you want to have a colorful tree, have a colorful tree, keep other things a little bit more muted. Don't have it everywhere, because then it can become very visually busy to you. And then that's when your space will kind of start to feel like it's closing in on you. So keep maybe a monochromatic. I know that Sarah, you're getting a lot of airtime here, Sarah. I know that Sarah has an all pink tree, and it's beautiful, and it's monochromatic, but with all kinds of different tones of pink in it. And it sits there nice. It's a beautiful piece, and it doesn't scream at you, but it certainly still gives you that warm vibe. So something like that, I think, is a really good thing to do as well.
So you don't have to match your tree colors to the rest of your other winter decor. Is that a fair?
I mean, there are different looks.
Just say yes. Just say yes.
Well, you're asking the wrong person. I am huge on like my tree is like, it kind of looks like Christmas threw up on it, if you will. I have every style of ornament on there. It's, you know, my tree is all about memories. I have ornaments from when I was a kid, ornaments that I have received in gifts, ornaments that my kids have made. So my tree and the rest of my house, I mean, they don't super line up. I would say to keep it within a realm, but if you do want to match and matchy is absolutely fine too. It's all about the vibe.
I want to match. I don't want to match. I'm with you. I like to have a tree that really is about memories and traditions and all those kind of things. I don't necessarily want to have a pristine tree. I like to have that. Then I would like to.
And some people will have multiple trees, especially now that you know they're faux trees. It's easy to pop one up like an umbrella and have a whole other space. So you could have, you know, your matching tree to your decor, and then in another room you could have your nostalgia tree. So. Okay,
there's another question that related to the small space, a creative tree alternative for an apartment.
So, like I had mentioned earlier, there are actually quite a few. I don't like referencing Pinterest because it can be very overwhelming, but it is a great resource. But if you look up alternative trees, then you're going to find some pretty cool ideas on there. Some will have it actually on the wall. They'll do, you know, they'll use different things. They could use tinsel. If you're into like a tinsel look, you could like outline a tree. For if you had kids and you wanted to incorporate a tree as well as, you know, activity for your kids. When my kids were younger, I made a felt one and then made felt ornaments, and then they stick on it like a tree, like the felt sticks to the felt. So you could have a creative tree like that. Sometimes you could just use a string of lights and get command hooks and put them in the right spots and string your lights, and then you've got yourself a little light tree on the wall. You could also do like what I did in that image where my sofa was with that small tree. Just get a small tree and put it, they don't take up a lot of space. You don't even have to put decorations on it. Get a cute little pot and some kitty litter and that could be your tree. So definitely all kinds of alternatives.
We had a couple of questions online, and I think you talked a little bit about this, but maybe just delve into a little bit more. What are your suggestions for decorating for winter instead of the holidays? Greenery and natural items you talked about, obviously some just looking at different colors and not necessarily having the Merry Christmases on the pillows, etc. But any other ideas that you can provide?
So anything that makes a space feel kind of cozy, because our winters here in Canada are quite chilly, getting warmer, but still chilly. So anything like a fuzzy blanket, or you know, you can find these really cool cushions that are look like a big knit, you know, something that looks cozy. So anything that really makes your space feel cozy. I know I talked a lot about the natural things, but like if you have a wood burning fireplace, or you have a fireplace and it's propane, you want to, you know, trip people out and think, why do they have wood when it's not even a wood burning fireplace? But wood offers a really great texture to a space. So you could have some logs, even, you know, if they're not, you know, proper wood logs for burning. If you have a birch tree that fell over in one of our many windstorms, and chop that up, stack it and make it, that's always very warm feeling. Candles are a really good one. Even if you don't light them, they give the illusion that they're going to be lit and create a cozy space. Yeah, so basically I would say anything that makes you feel cozy. Color tones are really important too. You know, you're going to probably stay away from the yellows or the oranges, like things that are bright and cheery that we kind of associate more with summer months. So, you know, your deeper jewel tones, or some muted colors you can still do, your whites and your creamy kind of colors that are, you know, reflective of the snow and winter. So that's, watch your color palette. Sometimes people have very neutral sofas. If you have a beige sofa and you have a very neutral rug or something in your space, and you could swap those pillows out quite easily. I know it obviously is a cost thing too, so it's not for everybody, but you can even go IKEA. IKEA covers are anywhere from like $5 to $20, but like there's nothing to say that $5 one that's in a plain solid color, throw your pillow in that and then take it off when it's time. You don't even have to get a new pillow insert itself. So all kinds of options out there.
Another was when you talked about
DIY one.
When you talked about couches, there was a question, and I'm trying to find it, but I can't see it. But there was somebody asked about a gray couch, how to decorate using a gray couch.
Oh,
I'm not sure that if somebody's online and they have that question, but I know I saw it and I don't see it on my list, but there's something
okay.
about a gray couch. So is there a pillow? I mean, what are some colors? Maybe wintry colors is more the whites, maybe the creams. You can certainly add a lot of that to the gray. I think gray is a pretty good neutral, really, right?
Gray definitely is a good neutral. What some people, it is a cool color. So you could, stay within those cool tones. So your navy blues, maybe even like I don't want to say burgundy, but like a jewel tone red.
Right.
Those kind of colors. Even you can even have a nice jewel tone green in there too. But again, as you said, your creams, your whites, anything like that, those are going to go beautifully in there. And then if you're still feeling like it's cool, then that's where your texture plays in. Bring in those warm textures, those fuzzy blankets, your big knits, pillows, those kinds of things that will give the space the illusion of warmth without the warm colors.
I hope we answered that question.
Pardon?
I hope we answered that question because I can't remember. I do remember seeing it online.
If it's not fully answered, then
let us know. If something's online, let us know. This is a really good question too. What sort of textiles are in trend for winter 2022 to 2023? It's a good question.
Textiles. So I'm going to assume you mean like your pillows and stuff like that.
Maybe.
Yeah. So again, it's really just that vibe of that anything that feels kind of natural. So when I say natural, like obviously you're not going to have a burlap pillow, not comfortable, but I apologize guys, my earbuds are dying and my daughter's home. So if you hear some noise in the background, I'm just going to switch out to my speaker here.
No worries. No. One comment I do like though, and you could probably hear me, I can't hear you. If someone mentioned, Francine mentioned to use UNB red and black is always in style, which Francine, you get big marks for that. I think that's a great idea.
Can you hear me again? Sorry, Sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
Hopefully it lasts. I don't know why I wouldn't connect to my audio. So textile. So, but anything that has that warmth texture, so like that, so faux fur, finishes, and anything that has a knit actually is a really big one. And then as far as your napkins and stuff go, I would say a lot of it is trending with anything that has a pattern on it that relates to nature. Right. So if it has like your natural berry, your holly on it, or your anything of that kind of print, I would say that would be more so than the ho pillows or like those kinds of things. I'd say go for a more natural.
Plaids. I know you have a plaid blanket, and I have Francine, I have a pillow on my chair, and I hope you see that I have a red and black pillow on my chair behind me.
I see it.
Are plaids still in? Like plaids are plaids are, well, are they always sort of that,
Plaids are classic.
Yeah,
plaids are not going anywhere.
Yeah, good. So bring in plaids, no matter what. Bring in plaids. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of questions about your career in design. There's certainly people who are interested in it. I'm sure people have a passion for it. Obviously, mm-hmm. You decided to switch careers from education to go into design. So how did you go about that? At what point did you discover that design was your passion? I know from a young age, you've been really interested in design. But maybe you could sort of give us a little sense of that path.
Yeah, I mean, I won't dive too deep into it because I'm going to go ahead and say it started when I was, roughly the age of 10,
Right.
which was several years ago. So, but yeah, I would say that I always had a passion for interiors, and I was like that weird kid that would go into someone's house and instead of, noticing the people, I would literally look and like notice the house. I remember we had a subdivision that was built that was developed next to our subdivision, and we used to go and look at the houses being built, and everybody else was interested in like going into the house and like sneaking around, and meanwhile I'm like looking around like, ooh, this is neat, oh, that's a cool design. Like, so yeah, so I always have been a passion of mine. My uncle's in the business. He does decor, interior stuff. And then my mom's good friend was an interior decorator, so she was always around. So I was exposed to it. And then in high school, I did an independent study in it, and then went to UNB, of course, and started in business, ended in arts, and then went into teaching. And when we moved from New Brunswick to Halifax. And when we moved here, I had my kids, and just wasn't really. I going back into teaching full time just didn't really seem like the right move for our family. And I'd always had this passion, so I started the course. I did my decorating course. I started my business, and I was very fortunate. I got hooked up after a few, I think it was roughly a year into my business that I got connected with this building company, and yeah, the rest is history.
Your first design project was your first real client?
My first real client was my mom. My first paying client, was referred to me by my sister, who has been very supportive of my business, throughout everything. So it's been great. So yeah, it was just like a bathroom renovation. And it would have been I would say I did lots of little projects before that, but that was probably like my official first one. Yeah.
Hey, I consulted Ginny on a few things. I would send her DMs. She picked out my paint in my house. So she's very good at that from afar. So I have used both called Dial a Friend or Dial a Designer, and I've called Ginny on a couple of things. So yeah, she's been great.
Yeah, always happy to help.
There was one question which I thought was a really nice one. Somebody who's interested in making tree ornaments with their grandkids. Any ideas? I'm sure you've done that with the girls. Any ideas for making handmade crafts for tree ornaments with young children? I'm not sure how old the grandkids are, but.
So I definitely have done this with my girls. I like to play with fire because I make glass ornaments with my kids. But I'm sure you can get them in plastic form. But a fun one is you can get, I get them at Michael's, and they're just clear, and the tops come off. So yes, it gives the kids an opportunity. I bought, for mine, colorful tinsel, and the kids put tinsel in, they put some glitter in, and then you put the top back on. They could put a little drawing in, roll it up, put it in there. Another one that you can do is painting, depending on how young they are, you can paint an ornament and then let it dry and then print their hand on it.
Nice.
And then put the date on it. And that's, that comes back into that whole nostalgia tree thing where you have the memories on your tree. And then of course, there's the classic cookie ornament.
Great. I have a few of those.
Yeah, I do too. Not made by me, but made by my children with other people.
Yes, me too. Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
One thing I did with the ornaments, I know those plastic or glass ornaments, and I did these for my kids. I'm not a crafty person at all, but I did do, they had the little tops off them. I put their high school tassels or university tassels, depending on how old, I put their their high school tassels in it. And that was an ornament that I gave them. So it has the year on it. So I thought that was very creative on my part, because I'm not really good crafty person.
Back up a little bit here. You are a crafty. I have seen your decor, and you are definitely crafty.
I'm not a crafty. I might be creative, but I'm not crafty. You know what I mean? So
okay, fair enough.
I have a question. So colored lights versus white lights. I have a couple of just snap questions. Colored versus white. What's your preference?
Okay, so
on Christmas tree. On Christmas tree. Okay,
that's indoor, outdoor. I do both.
Okay. Good.
So I literally do both. I wrap the white lights tight, not on the trunk, obviously, but tight into the tree. And then
do you go around or is it vertical? There's a big thing. People are saying, should we do tree lights horizontally or vertically?
Okay. Horizontal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's always better to do two sets, like 2 rows. So one is inset,
and then the next one's outset just a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I can hear you. You're fine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I actually do both. I think it gives just like a nice, and especially if you're using like the small lights, it's nice rather than the big ones that we're used to.
Last question. Fake or real trees? What's your preference? The trend seems to be fake because there's a lot of fake trees out there, but is that a trend? Is that a trend?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a trend so much as a lifestyle. People are busy and it's easy to put, a tree up, or you don't have to go get the tree. Some people don't like maintaining the tree. People don't like the needles falling off of the tree. So a lot of people have allergies to the outdoors, and they bring these trees into their house and they're miserable over the holidays.
Yeah, it's true.
So personally, I always have a real tree. I fight very hard to have a real tree every year, and I will continue to fight the good fight.
I'm still holding strong on the real tree too. I don't know if maybe when I get old, I might, but I'm still holding strong.
Good. And you know what? For me, it's literally comes down to coming down the stairs in the morning, having the smell, the going to get the tree. Like it's a whole thing. But that's not to say that faux trees do not have a place. I understand it. It's just not for me.
This has been great. We're 12:57. So I know people are probably joining us during their lunch time. So we want to make sure that we are being concise. This is being recorded. I shared that message. It's being recorded. So we will send out the link to you folks afterwards so that you have it, so you can watch it again at your leisure, or maybe share it with a friend or a family member who didn't get a chance to join us today. Thanks, Jay. This has been great. Learned a lot. I hope many of our viewers learned a lot. I'm sure that they did. Before we sign off, we did promise that we were going to offer a 30-minute consultation, and you'll do it probably virtually with someone. And it was interesting. Before Francine made the comment about the red and black, we'd already chosen Francine. I don't know Francine's last name, but Francine, we'll connect you with Ginny. But if you want to send me an email, definitely am at unb.ca, or I can find you at some point. But if you're still online, maybe you can connect with me and we'll connect you with Ginny. And we're going to send you, we'll appreciate if we'll send you a follow-up survey to the registrants. So if you have any input, if you things that you want to share, maybe some takeaways that you have that I could share with Ginny, because I'm sure she'd appreciate getting some feedback.
Absolutely.
Please do so. We'll also send you the recording in that message as well. So we really appreciate it. And maybe you can suggest some webinars going forward too for next year, because we will have some new webinars starting in January. This is the last one for the 2022 season. Again, just thank you to our affinity partners. You have them listed here: Manulife Financial and TD Insurance, who are both one of our affinity partners. They offer some great insurance options for folks. And they also provide a lot of revenue to the association, to the Alumni Association. And then we in turn support students by sponsoring activities for them, et cetera. So if you're looking for a new insurance carrier, car, home, tenant, or health, dental, you might want to check these folks out. So again, thank you for spending your hour with us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to Ginny Ward for sharing her tips and advice with us. I'm sure we're all going to be going home and looking at our house and going, okay, what can we do? How can we bring the inside out, et cetera, et cetera. So happy decorating. I wish you all the best for the holiday season, and take time to enjoy your home. Just sit and relax, and hope you'll have that time to do it. We look forward to seeing you or having you join us again in 2023 for our webinars. and certainly for some of our in-person gatherings if we are in your area. So thanks very much. Again, thanks to Ginny, and thank you guys for joining us. It was a pleasure.